Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today, we are going to take a roundabout look at Transformers Earthspark and just a classic old trope in all media aimed at families and children. Alright, so here's the opening question. What do Transformers Earthspark, The Goonies, Adventures in Babysitting, and Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead all have in common? Well, here's the thing. At some point or another, a logical leap is taken to assume that the parents are gotten out of the way. In The Goonies, the classy 80s show, in the culture at the time, it was absolutely normal for groups of children to wander off into the woods and have adventures. The leap of suspension of disbelief is believing that there could be a giant cave system full of traps hiding right below a town, that nobody ever noticed this. This wasn't picked up on seismographic records in an earthquake-prone place, but there's no suspension of disbelief to believe that some busy parents in a peaceful Pacific Northwest town out in the middle of nowhere would be willing to let their kids go out on an adventure. In the Adventures in Babysitting, there are no cell phones at the time, that's the key, and the parents are quietly gotten out of the way, going on a long date. There's a strict timeline. The babysitters get into the city with the kids and be back to the house before the parents get back. Again, the parents are just flat out gone. It doesn't require too much suspension of disbelief. That comes from, them surviving their adventures. And then, of course, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. The parents hired a long-term babysitter for when they were going to be out of town. And the suspension of disbelief in there just comes in that the police didn't figure out where the body had come from. But anyway, Earthspark, that's what we're talking about here. There appears to be a supervision issue, but on consideration, I believe it's more of a time compression issue. What am I talking about? In the first 10 episode, the plot element or the story element of how these two adults, Mom and Pop Malto, were reacting to having these children who were just literally a few hours old, had the emotional stability of a child somewhere between 5 and 12, the intellectual abilities of a full-grown adult human, and the physical capacity of a literal alien war machine. Now, for a parent trying to supervise their children, this is kind of a nightmare situation. Fortunately, Twitch and Thrash were, for the most part, willing to listen and obey, and when they weren't, the consequences of that and the stress that put on Mom and Pop Malto were clearly depicted. However, that was an initial story arc as the story opened. That was world building, world establishing. Now, after the battle with Mandroid, as the series goes on in the episodes, I noticed that there's less of a focus on Mom and Pop Malto and their struggle to keep their increasingly intelligent and active Terran children safe. In the past few episodes, in the past 3 episodes, the first 3 episodes of the second set of episodes that was dropped, you have each of the 3 youngest children going on an adventure, and each of these 3 youngest children being allowed to go to places where one of them actually goes into the ghost base, one of them goes and basically works with Megatron on a construction site, and one of them goes and befriends a rogue Decepticon. So you have pretty common plot elements for the series, but in none of these cases were these children being supervised by Mom and Pop Malto. Now, part of this is a time compression decompression issue. For the first 10 episodes, we were seeing every single day in the lives, usually every single hour in the lives of the Maltos. So we got to see Twitch and Thrash develop at what seemed to be a reasonable rate. But as we're getting after that story arc is done, now that we've established this world, we're dealing with a lot of time compression, where there are days, weeks, or possibly even months in between each episode. And so we didn't see that initial shaky, uncertain childlike development for Jawbreaker, Hashtag, and Nightshade. They just kind of leap from we were literally just born an hour ago to completely rewiring electronics, having a firm grasp of how to use technology, and understanding a lot of human culture. Now, that's acceptable. It's acceptable to pick up the pace of plot development and world building. But it does make for some odd contrasts, especially when you get into certain stranger danger elements of the later episodes. It does, however, offer an amusing contrast to those old 80s movies. You have two humans here who are trying to keep track of 5 separate living children, again, with advanced intelligence, advanced emotional capacity, and super advanced physicality. So far, I think the show is handling it fairly well. And this is probably not something their target audience, young children, are going to catch up on. The kids are just going to focus on the adventure, just as we did when we watched Goonies, and we didn't question how those pulleys and systems worked down in the caves. And as the plot moves forward, I assume we're going to see the children interacting more and more on their own without their parents holding their hand the entire way, which will advance the plot, so I'm looking forward to it. But I do wonder how the show is going to handle that concept going forward. How much authority do Mom and Pop Malto have over their youngest 5 children, and how long is that going to last? I mean, presumably the Terrans are going to outlive their entire families, and presumably they're going to reach maturity much faster than Robbie and Mo if they keep progressing at their current rate. And the difference in the rate of mental and emotional development between the Malto's human children and their Terran children is going to be a very interesting element, and one that I'm not entirely sure that the show can address without going much, much deeper than the show appears to be at this moment. So I look forward to finding out how that plays out. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? How is Transformers Earthspark going to address the emotional and physical maturity of the children going forward? And how much more time is the show going to spend exploring the stress that will result in for Mom and Pop Malto? Leave a comment below telling me what you think. Hit that like and subscribe button. Go check out my book, Humans Are Weird, Let's Work It Out. And peace out, my wonderful viewers.